Well, it's the third or fourth weekend in a row where we've had wind and rain here in the UK and indeed Ireland, and it looks as if this weekend we have got the first named storm since 2022, believe it or not, 18 months. We have Storm Anthony. We'll look at the details in just a second with regards to the wind and the rain potential across the UK and Ireland. But before we continue with the video, please like, share, and indeed hit that subscribe button. I'm in and around 50 subscribers away from the new benchmark of 5,000 subs here in the channel. So if you haven't already done so and you're enjoying the content here on marfloganweather.com, be sure to hit that red button and help me get to 5,000 subscribers before the end of the month. So yeah, it's been a very interesting period of time, that's for sure, across the UK and Ireland. Warmest June on record. Then we've seen a very wet July indeed, cooler than average as well, based on the most recent 30-year temperature anomaly and climate database, of course. But also, we seen the deepest low since the 1980s for the month of July. We also seen back just Wednesday past the deepest area of low pressure for August over the UK since the 1980s as well. And it looks as if we have a jet stream to the west of the UK and Ireland that is of the strongest levels for early August, believe it or not, since according to Sharon Brune, since 1979. So it has been a very interesting summer, that's for sure. And it looks as if we continue with this very interesting weather. If you're out camping over the course of the weekend coming up, especially across southern and southwestern areas, be aware we have got some pretty inclement weather coming up. Of course, we've got the all-important global weather and climate report this upcoming Sunday, edition 53. We are going to be looking at such aspects as the extreme flooding across parts of China. We've seen remarkable warmth spread across the South American continent, likely a reflection of the El Nino, of course. And another interesting one, new research. This is according to a tweet by Ryan Murray during the week. A tweet here showing that new research suggests that the Hunga Tonga underwater volcanic eruption that took place in January 2022, I believe it was, if I'm right in saying. It might be 2021. I could be wrong. I get my years mixed up. But anyway, 40 trillion gallons of seawater was ejected out of the Pacific and into the atmosphere, particularly so initially over the southern hemisphere. That may be a reason why the Antarctic is so warm at the moment, but also that has been transferring into the northern hemisphere and likely induced an increase in the global temperature over the last year or so. So we'll look at that in a little bit more detail this upcoming Sunday. Another reason to subscribe to the channel, because we don't also just look at UK and Ireland weather, the Atlantic, the Northern Hemisphere, but globally overall and the state of the climate as well. So I try to provide an unbiased opinion with regards to climate change. We, of course, are getting absolutely bombarded by social media, by mainstream media with regards to how the world is warming at an alarming rate. And I just try to provide a little bit of perspective with regards to that each and every Sunday, and generally speaking through the course of the week. So no video tomorrow, of course. I tend to take a Saturday off just to kind of recoup a little bit. I do work, of course, night shift as well, so I do have a reasonably busy schedule, so I'm sure people will appreciate the fact that I don't do a video on a Saturday, but I think 6 days is pretty decent, really, overall. So this is the temperature anomaly. It's been a cool start to the month of August across the European continent, as you can see here. Warm across Russia, across Finland, but of course most of Scandinavia is below average. Most of Central and Western Europe, as well as that across even Iberia, has been a cooler than average start. And of course the UK and indeed Ireland here. Looking at the GFS ensemble, of course, this is the upcoming 5-day period, and it is still firmly below average. This takes us out to the 9th of August, of course. But we are starting to see little changes now taking place in the models. It looks as if the models are now shifting a little bit of a trough now over towards the Atlantic. And that then opens the door with areas of low pressure tracking up from a south to southwesterly direction glancing the western half of the UK and Ireland. That then opens the door to unsettled in the west and northwest, and warmer, drier, and sunnier across the south and east. And we do have a shot of some bona fide warm weather as we push towards the late part of next week. So you can see here in the 6 to 10 day period, the 9th through the 14th of August, it's now starting to go a little bit above average, particularly so Ireland, Northern Ireland, England, and Wales, closer to average across Scotland, where we may have more influence of Atlantic low pressure in the far north of the UK. And the 11 to 15 day, you can see here that it's slightly above average, but not excessively so. You look at the 850 temperature anomalies here off the GFS ensemble for London, and you can see here that we have got firmly below average, then we go above average around the period of the 8th of August, and it looks as if some outliers indicate that 850 temperatures are 5,000 feet above our heads actually goes way up above. You've only got really a couple of members that are going up above 20 Celsius at 850, which would present low to mid 30s, believe it or not, in the southeast corner of the UK. But one thing that I will say as a word of caution, we've got saturated ground now thanks to the excessive rains during July, and of course over the weekend we're going to see more further heavy rainfall. Even though the warm air at 850 is going to be, subject to a little bit of question mark, it looks like between generally 18 to about 14. So 14 to 18 Celsius looks to be the best call in the general scheme of things, according to the ensemble anyway, for 850s. But with wet ground in place, you don't tend to get the exceptional warmth like we seen the 40 back last July. That was with very dry ground and, of course, very warm air aloft. We've got a slightly different dynamic this year with the fact that, yes, we may see a surge of very, very warm air within the column at 850 down to the surface, but of course with a lot of wet ground, more evaporation into the atmosphere, of course that then changes the equation, and temperatures may not be just as warm as what you would otherwise expect with 850s of plus 20 Celsius. So something just to bear in mind, I think, anyway, as we go forward. So of course we've got Storm Anthony, and we need to monitor this situation very, very carefully indeed. Now, if you look at the GFS model here for the jet stream winds, this system can be traced all the way back to off the east coast of the United States, away back on Monday the 31st of July. Now, what we've got is we've got a jet stream wind in excess of 190 miles per hour racing across the Atlantic. Of course, that is a breeding ground for areas of low pressure to develop. It keeps the weather pattern very, very active indeed, unusually so for late July, early August, of course. But this system then has tropical energy associated, hence why we think we could have 50, 60 millimetres of rain, especially across parts of Ireland and Northern Ireland during the latter half of tonight and into tomorrow morning. We'll look at the details in just a second, but we could see some very significant rainfall amounts over the next 24-hour period across initially Ireland, Northern Ireland, and then into Wales and western and central portions of England as that system moves through. It's also deepening as it moves from the southern side to the northern side of the jet stream, and of course that means that we see the rapid deepening taking place. So if you notice here, this feature right here, rather innocuous on this jet stream chart, shows the feature just off the east coast of the United States. As we play through the sequence, you can see the jet stream strengthening, those purple colours representing wind speeds of 140 to 150 knots. Then as that system then rides the southern flank, there's the feature that produced the deepest area of low pressure, by the way, since 1985 during the course of Wednesday just past. You notice here that that feature then disappears off the chart. We've got a very strong arc of jet stream winds crossing over Newfoundland, arcing over the North Atlantic. We've got the dip in the jet over the UK and Ireland, of course. We had that cool northerly flow in the backside of that Wednesday system. And then as we go through the loop here, That system then reappears just at the very end of the loop. There's a cross in Ireland and then into the UK and Ireland, the UK and Ireland during the course of later tonight and into tomorrow morning. But it's that transition across the jet that means that we see a bit more of a rapid deepening of that area of low pressure here. So we need to keep a close eye on this feature, by the way, because it not only is going to bring further flood and rainfall to parts of the UK and Ireland, but also on the south and west side of the system. As it deepens, we're going to see some real squeeze in the isobars. So 50, 60 mile an hour winds is going to be problematic. Of course, you've got full foliage on the leaves at this time of the year. You've also got a lot of people camping, caravanning, out traveling. So wind and rain is going to cause a lot of issues, I think, for people, especially campers. Really, it's going to be very, very nasty indeed tonight and through the first half of tomorrow, I think, as we go forward here. So you can see here off the GFS model, there's that system. It's not overly deep, but it's a very compact little feature. So notice in the northern flank, we've got that, east to southeasterly winds driving some very heavy precipitation into the northern side of the Republic, in the south and the eastern portions of Northern Ireland here. Then as that feature then moves across the Irish Sea, we'll see further deepening of the circulation here, heavy rainfall through parts of mid and north Wales, into the Midlands, into the north of England here, not just as much across the southwest during the early portion of tomorrow or the first half of tomorrow, but we're going to have those winds on the western and southwestern flank. So southwest Wales, parts of the North Devon and Cornwall coast, we could see some very intense winds coming in off the Irish Sea from a northwesterly direction. And of course, being aware on the coast, we could see some very significant waves battering the shoreline as well. So that system then pushes eastwards. We're going to see the rains eventually start to ease off as that system moves into the northwest of France, northeastern France, the Low Countries, and into the central portions of Europe. So we're going to see some very intense thunderstorms, I think, on the eastern side through parts of Germany and Poland. Down into the Baltic region, we're going to see some heavy weather as well to speak about. Then we get a little bit bump in the isobars. Then showers develop. Of course, there's a cool legacy of air in the wake of that system. That's going to develop showers and thunderstorms, I think, during the course of Sunday. Then we'll keep an eye on this next feature moving through. Not anywhere near as intense. It looks like the GFS actually has it kind of fading out as it moves through, but another feature moves through behind that for Tuesday and Wednesday of next week. And then it's all eyes on the second half of the upcoming work week, by the way. Area of low pressure gathering, but notice it's to the west. And notice it's not just transferring from west to east across the UK. So therefore, we open up the door to the south. And if you look at the 850 temperatures, you can see here that we have some fairly warm air getting wafted north, according to the model here for Friday and into Saturday. It looks as if the GFS is a little bit more reluctant to send that 20 Celsius isotherm up into the British Isles, but we've got 10 to 15 Celsius isotherm, bringing some very mild air up from Spain, Portugal, France, and into the UK here. The question is, how long does it last? And certainly the latest run of the GFS still has more areas of low pressure in and around the UK shores and fresher air, not necessarily cold air, but fresher air is present according to the GFS run as we move through beyond the period here. And then we have another opportunity of some warm air getting lifted north. So we're going to see this back and forth, I think, in terms of temperature. That's why the GFS ensemble doesn't indicate that we go from all of a sudden below average to firmly above average. Looking carefully at the ECMWF model before I run out of time, still fresh air, as you can see here, during most of next week. Area of low pressure moves through during the middle portion of the week, a little bit milder to the south side as opposed to the north side. Some very fresh air on the north side of the system. Then there's that surge of warmth, and look at that. The ECMWF has more significant warmth at 850 over the British Isles here, according to this latest model of the run, and then fresh air moves in from the west here. But as I say, ground is very wet, So we're not necessarily going to see as much warmth as we did last July. Run out of time. Be sure to subscribe.